Hi, guys. Welcome to another episode of Once More with Abby and Claire. I would be Abby. This would be Claire. I'm pretty much sure you know this at this point, but can't assume such things.
You never
So,
know.
anyway, as we know, Claire and I have a love of all things Buffy. So we just thought, let's just go back and watch from the beginning and talk about them each week because it makes us happy. And
It
if
does,
in
and
turn
it's
it makes
fun.
you happy, yeah. And if it makes you happy, great. If it doesn't make you happy, just let us know what we can do to make you happy. So this week we are on actually one of my favorite episodes to start with.
Yeah,
We're doing season
agreed.
2, episode 19 to
Yep.
start, which is called I Only Have Eyes for You. And I know Claire and I have sort of briefly discussed this ahead of time, but not since the
Yeah.
rewatch, is that this
No,
is
no.
just a favorite ghost story. It's anyway, so it starts off at the Bronze, as everything does, and it's cute because Buffy's getting hit on by this guy. I think his name is Ben, that he was in her math class or whatever, and
Yeah.
she's like so clueless. And he's like, so are you going to the Sadie Hawkins dance? And she's like, isn't that the one where the girls ask the boys? And he's like, yeah, I thought maybe you'd want to ask me. So she turns him down gently because obviously she's never dating again because psychos.
Tony
So,
Tom Kerr says, "Hi, Abby."
hi. Oh, that was really a weird sound that came out of me. I apologize. Hi.
It was
I
a
don't
nice
know
sound.
where
I
that
liked
came
it.
from. Hmm. So she tells Willow she's going to go on patrol and then sack it. She came, she saw, she rejected. It was
Yeah,
over. And
in a very Buffy way.
in a very Buffy way. So then we see two students in the school. I always wondered how all these students are in the school after hours because this is always happening. But these two students are arguing and breaking up in the school. And it's almost like you can tell they're reciting lines. And then he says something like, love is forever. And then pulls out a gun.
Yeah.
And she's like, you're not going to kill me. And he's like, don't walk away from it, bitch. And then, Buffy sees this and knocks the gun out of his hand. And then he's like super confused. And she, like, the girl that he was going to shoot, like, fell. Didn't she fall backwards?
Clint
Or is
says,
that
"Hello,
not?
ladies. Hi, Clint.
Hi, Clint.
Happy birthday for yesterday from us at Once More with Abby and Claire."
So he was confused. He said, we weren't even fighting a minute ago. I don't even have a gun. They're looking, the gun's gone. And then, like, we kind of cut to Buffy was in class dozing off. Yeah. And when she wakes up, she's in a classroom and clearly in the 50s. And she's watching as the students leave, and this beautiful female teacher is talking to one of the male students. And I do want to point out that Meredith Salinger plays this title role, the role of the teacher in this, and what is her name in this? Miss something or other, Miss Grace Newman. I love her. If you don't know who Meredith Salinger is, she's big star from the 80s. I mean, she's still acting. Married to a Patton Oswalt. I follow them both on Twitter because I absolutely love them. But so anyway,
Clint says it looks like I'm wearing the red dress on the background.
Yes.
Almost. It kind of does. If I go like this way.
Oh yeah, you got. It's like all of a sudden I got great.
Other way, that way.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Kind of.
So
Tony says, not sure if it's me, but you guys are blurry. I think we're all right at our end. I'm not sure if it was everybody else seeing it okay.
See, I don't know because I'm always blurry. Like,
yeah, same. Our eyesight isn't the best, so you'll have to excuse us. Everything's blurry to us.
Yeah, I can't even see Claire. I know she's there because I can see him. Now that she dyed her hair, too, I can see.
You can just see the orange.
But, Tony, if it gets better, if it gets worse, let us know because I don't see anything on my end, but, so anyway, she could tell looking at these students that they've got something going on, this teacher and this student. And then
it's a bit creepy and it's not right.
Yeah, because and if the roles were reversed, it would be like, oh, I'm calling the cops. But anyway, so the door opens and then Buffy wakes up and she's back in class. And she's telling Xander about the weirdness as he's like in his locker. And he's like, we live in a hellmouth. Like, that's not unusual. And then as he's saying this, an arm reaches out through the locker and
It's
like
so
grabs him and
great.
starts
It
trying
is
to
a
pull him
great
in.
bit.
And random locker monster. And they go to tell
Yeah,
Giles.
just
Like,
starts like trying to claw him inside it.
He's like the Loch Ness monster. He's like, no, locker monster. So they determine that this is some sort of paranormal phenomenon as Buffy is telling them about the weirdness that she had going on. And I don't know which one of them said it, but somebody said, we got some bad boo on our hands. And I'm like, it's just such a stupid saying. But so Giles comes to the conclusion that it's a poltergeist because of the anger and the issues. And they need to kind of like work out the unresolved issues to figure out what the ghost wants, needs, has, and resolve them. So, you know, again, after hours, the teacher's leaving for the night and we see George, the janitor, and, you know, you could tell they don't know each other very well. It's like, aren't you? Yeah, okay, bye. And as they like walk past each other, George calls her back. And then all of a sudden they're both instantly in this, they're both possessed by these ghosts, or they're in this skit that keeps being replayed like over and over again.
It's like a paranormal muscle memory.
Yeah, exactly.
Like repeating itself over and over again.
And there's just the same things. They're saying, you can't make me disappear just because you say it's over. And she says, there's no way we can be together. And they're reenacting this past love story. You know that, you just have no idea why. They begin to argue, and line for line, the same fight as the first couple. And then she tells them, you know, if that's what you need to hear, I don't love you. You know, everybody's like, ugh. And then all of a sudden he's got a gun in his hand. You actually see the gun appear in his hand. And he says the same thing the first guy says, love is forever. Don't walk away from me, bitch. And Giles sees them fighting and witnesses the man shooting the teacher. And then she falls backwards over the balcony and she is DED dead. Crashes to the ground floor. George, the janitor, starts to run out and Giles tackles him, and that breaks the spell. And he tells him he just shot a woman. And, you know, they know what's going on. We find out later that when they're in this, they know what's happening, but they can't control it. It's
they
like
can't do anything about it.
They're being used as a puppet, as it were.
Yeah.
Angel is showing Drusilla his new garden, the night blooming jasmine that she loves. It's like a fairyland for her, as she says. And Spike's, you know, crabbing in his wheelchair, rolls up behind him and says, that's going to be great when the sun comes out and we've got all this land and we're going to be, you know, with all the big open windows. And, you know, Angel tells him, if you don't like it, Spike, go hit the stairs. So Angel's just egging him on again, basically.
Yeah, there's so much at this point between them. It's just a pissing contest, isn't it? It's like, they might as well just throw it out on the table and check who's his biggest.
Exactly.
Really,
I've got rulers. I've seen at least one of them, but that's besides the point. But
anyway.
So, you know, he's also, he's seducing Drusilla right in front of Spike.
Yeah.
Not that he wants Drusilla. He just loves what it does to Spike. He's all about the conflict. And
again, Angel truly is, when he's on jealous, it's just he gets off on that evil. He loves it.
Oh yeah. If he's gonna make you squirm, he's gonna hit the parts of you that hurt the worst.
Yeah, definitely.
So we're back to the Scoobies, and Giles tells him that he remembers, the janitor remembers everything, but again has no idea why, and they never had an intimate relationship, and nobody can find this gun. And so Giles comes to the conclusion, with his big frontal squishy lobes, that it must be Jenny that's haunting the school, even though everybody else realizes that this has no bearing on the way Jenny died. No. But because it's violence and because it's in the school, he feels that the gun is insignificant and that it's the violence that matters to this scenario.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, you know, he's not going to listen to reason, so they just sort of placate him and kind of go off on their own to do some research because everybody knows that's not what it is. This is a very specific part people are playing. So Willow, being, computer genius girl, finds an article about a student named James Stanley, played by Christopher Gorham, and the teacher Grace Newman, played by Meredith Salinger, as I said before, who were having an affair. And coincidentally, on the night of the Sadie Hawkins dance, she was killed when she tried to break it off with him. And then after he killed her, he went into the music room and he shot himself. So Buffy sees posters. She knows it's 1955. Buffy tells the Scoobies that she's dreamed about both of these people and explains, that it's one of her premonitions. Buffy is a bit bitter these days because of the Angelus situation. So she has no sympathy.
As you would be.
Yeah, as you would be. She has no sympathy for Ghost James because, just like a guy, teacher, she really only cares about the teacher ghost because obviously she was the one that was killed, and she's clearly projecting her angel issues onto this subject. So, what she's basically blaming Giles of doing, she's doing the same thing, but in a completely different way. So, Wiles Willow says she's been searching some of Miss Calendar's pagan sites, and she thinks she can find out a way to find out what he wants. So Buffy says, I don't care what he wants. We just need to shut him down before some other innocent guy goes and kills some poor nice girl and blows his brains out all over the music room wall.
Yeah.
So again, Buffy has no sympathy. No, she's got her tunnel vision, and I do understand it. And,
definitely.
She's at least not too hard-headed that, she'll come around eventually. Yeah. In the lunchroom, this is actually funny. So Cordelia is boycotting the Sadie Hawkins dance because that the girls have to ask the guys, and they have to pay and everything, and that's just freaking ridiculous.
Cordelia at her best,
And so all of a sudden, like, everything in the lunchroom turns into snakes. There's just snakes everywhere in the food, and Cordelia gets bit in the face by a snake, which honestly I do feel very badly for her because that's terrifying.
Yeah, I would have been pretty scared.
And like all the students are rushing out of the lunchroom, and Snyder's just sitting there looking around like, oh. So he calls the animal control, and I guess it's the mayor or the police chief. I guess it's the police chief, and he's like, he's like, well, should we say it's schoolboy pranks? And they're like, no one's going to buy that. And so he's like, what about a backed up sewer system? He's like, I could probably make that work. Backed up sewer system. So that everybody's in on this. Everybody knows. They talk about
of course.
It's getting out of hand. People will talk. He knows they're on a hellmouth, which is the first time that you realize that an adult other than Giles knows what a hellmouth is. But the police chief knows. And he basically says to Snyder, you were hired for your ability to take care of these things. So just take care of it. You should be able to handle this on your own. During Willow's research of these said pagan sites, she finds out the only solution would be an exorcism. And because where the balcony is where the original teacher died, and where the teacher died that night, that's like the hot spot right there where that final confrontation happened.
Yeah.
So they need to create a mangus, which is like a mangus tripod, so like a triangle where one person is in the hot spot and the other two chant in the triangle and throughout the school. And so Buffy says she's going to take the hot spot because if there's trouble, that's where it's going to be, and she's ready to like take James out. Xander tells her that the ghost James is fixating on Buffy, and Buffy's hoping he shows up because she wants to kick his butt. She works better with something solid she can hit. Yeah. That's a great way for her to work out her issues. So I guess because of Buffy's anger, James is fixated on her.
Yeah.
And as soon as they get into the school with all their stuff, like all the windows and all the doors just slam shut and locked, and they're just in there. And back in the garden, Drusilla has one of her visions that the gate is opening and it wants the Slayer. And Angel She is. I adore everything about her. And then
Yeah,
again,
absolutely.
Angel chides Spike. He's pissing them off.
Yep.
Willow gets a little freaked out by Giles, who's also in the school after dark, because he's trying to contact Jenny and he just can't
Yeah.
seem to get it through his head that this is not Jenny. Um, Buffy hears the 50s music, I Only Have Eyes for You, which is we'll talk about when you do
Yeah.
the music.
Yeah.
She sees a sign for the Sadie Hawkins dance of 1955, so she knows she's in this vision now. She sees in the classroom the teacher and the student are dancing. They're very much in love. Um, and then the man turns his face and it's all zombified.
Yeah.
And like at the same time, Cordelia's checking out her face in the mirror with the bite mark, and then her face gets all gross, and
Yeah.
Willow's in her spot, and then like something reaches up from the floor and like grabs her, trying to pull her through a portal. And she calls to Giles, who helps her out. And um, at that time, Buffy has a vision of the student shooting the teacher and the zombie student screaming, "Get out!" to Buffy. So then all of a sudden, everything's back to normal. Cordelia's face is back to normal. No more portal in the staircase. But Giles knows this can't be Jenny, as Willow
Yeah. It's
says.
quite a
Jenny's
touching
not
moment,
this
to be
mean.
fair.
Yeah, and it hits him pretty hard. Jenny can't be
Yeah.
this mean. So the bell chimes. They all do their parts of the spell. Their candles blow out. They're all apprehensive. And then all of a sudden, a swarm of wasps come down the school hallway.
And it's a big one.
It's a big one. I wasn't sure till later that they were wasps. It was like I thought they were bees, but
I wasn't sure at the time, but yeah.
yeah,
Wasps.
they're wasps. They run out the door out of the school, and the swarm is just surrounding the entire school. Um, so they're back. They have to leave there. They're trying to figure out what he wants. Buffy says he wants forgiveness, and he's living his life, this purgatory, over and over again, but he doesn't deserve forgiveness. And Giles says forgiveness isn't for them. It's not done because people deserve it. It's because they need it. It's got
Yeah.
nothing to do with whether he deserves it. But she again still has no sympathy
No, she's not having it
for the.
at all.
No, she's not having it. So she looks at her. She's like walks. She kind of walks away, and she looks in her pocket, and she still has the school Sadie Hawkins 1955 dance
Yeah.
poster in her pocket, and she just walks out the back door, and she just walks to the school like she's in a trance. And as she walks
Yeah.
up, all the wasps separate, and she walks right into the building. And it's like only a short time later that Willow realizes that she's gone off to the school, and they all go to follow her. And Giles thinks that the spirit is actually calling her and that she didn't do it on purpose. But since there's no male spirit inside the school, we
Everything should
figure
be
we should be
fine.
safe. But turns out our friend Angelus is inside the school, because wasps don't affect the undead, and he was able to
Yeah.
just walk right in. So when they get within each other, she is reciting James's lines to Angel, and then he's like,
Yeah.
"What's
Back to the
wrong with you,
muscle
Buffy?"
memory.
Like, and then he gets closer, and then all of a sudden, Miss Newman takes over him.
Mm.
It's a beautiful scene. I mean, they
It
reenact
is.
the whole scene, but with
It
Buffy
is a
playing the
beautiful
role of
scene.
James, and Angel playing the teacher role, and it's a great scene. It's so painful because they're both going to remember this when the spell wears
Yeah,
off.
it is.
And Buffy pulls out the gun and says, "Love is forever," and they recite their scenes, and Buffy fires, and Angel falls over the balcony. And Buffy then heads to the music room, and that's where the record's playing their song, "I Only Have Eyes for You." And when she looks in the mirror, she sees James, and she's obviously still in this trance.
Yeah.
But Angel, due to the fact that he is a vampire and a gunshot cannot kill him, nor can a fall, he stops her. And basically, as Ms. Newman tells Buffy James that he is forgiven. So
Yeah.
Ms. Newman is finally able to come back and forgive James through Buffy and Angel, and then they kiss.
Essentially fulfilling
the end of
the reason
whatever the
why James
requirements
is still
were.
there.
Exactly. And the spell is broken. James crosses over. And Buffy, they're both still on this like post kiss, and then Angel basically like it just shoves her off of him, and he's
Yeah,
disgusted and runs
pretty
out of the
dramatic.
school. And he just can't wash the sick feeling of being overcome
No.
with that much love is just disgusting to him. And he tells Drusilla he needs to go commit a vile murder.
Yeah.
And he tells Spike he can't come because we got to travel light. It's almost daylight, but try to have fun without me. And as they leave, Spike's like, "Oh, I will," and just gets up out of the wheelchair
It's a
and kicks
great
it
scene.
over.
I remember the first time I saw it. That is a great scene. You're like,
There was
oh
cheering.
dear.
It was
This is where
fantastic.
the shit goes down.
So that is episode 19, and again, there's one of my favorites. I love a good ghost story, especially one that's done so classically.
Yeah, I mean, it sticks with me. It's one of those episodes, as I feel we're now getting into that territory as well, where there's those memorable episodes. The ones that the first time you watched it, you never forgot it. You never, it's always a favorite.
Yeah. Oh, it totally. And it's one of those. When I saw it was next on the list, I was excited to watch it again.
Same. Both these episodes this week,
These
I
are great
absolutely
ones.
loved.
Yeah, we like the Monster of the Week episodes because it takes some of the stress off of the characters, even though they're still going through it by proxy. It's somewhat removed.
Yeah,
so
I do like that.
Tell us
what
about
I've got this week. Right. So obviously on the music, we have the Flamingos. I only have eyes for you. It's actually got a little bit of we've got an issue.
What's
so
that?
the Sadie Hawkins dance was 1955. And as the yearbook opened, it said 1955. Unfortunately, I Only Have Eyes for You by the Flamingos came out in 1959.
That's
unfortunately. Not that I'm dissing it because it's Buffy and we love it and it works perfectly in this episode.
No, it is
but they
perfect.
got the dates
Did
wrong.
anybody do that song before the Flamingos?
Nope.
Okay.
And it's the Flamingos version and it was in 1959, but the Sadie Hawkins dance was in 1955.
That's fantastic. I love that.
Yeah, I was shocked as well because it never crossed my mind that would have been a wrong or missed. But I mean, it does work great. It works in this episode. It doesn't upset me that they got it wrong at all.
Right.
I don't think they did got it wrong. It's maybe like, as I said, it works so well. They probably just thought, well, nobody will care. And I didn't. But it's a little fact,
It is a great little fact. I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's fun.
A couple of other things as well, as you were saying about the lady who played Miss Newman, Meredith Salinger, as you said. Great actress. Loads of things on there. Also, the guy who played the janitor of the school that played it out for the second time, he's John Hawkes, and he was Pete Bottoms in Dusk Till Dawn, who had the convenience store.
I did not realize that.
I knew his face when I watched it, but it wasn't until I went and looked. And I was like, yes, that's
I usually, I was so caught up on, because I love Meredith Salinger, and I was like, I knew her from Dream a Little Dream, and I knew there was something else. There was a movie called The Kiss, probably in the 90s. Let me see if I can figure out when that movie came out, that I was obsessed with. And if you haven't seen it, I suggest you do that.
I just have to look at that.
Yeah.
What else I had this week? Quick look at these out the way. You mentioned earlier about it becomes very obvious that Schneider and the mayor and Bob and everybody's in on it. Everyone knows it's a hellmouth. But this is quite what would you call it? A pathetic episode. I mean, and we're looking later on. We're looking at some of the things that happened in this episode. And I won't do any spoilers, but as we get further down the road of Buffy, very much further, in fact, probably at when we're about to finish the last season, all of the things that you're hearing now, as always with Josh Whedon, come all back around and things make sense suddenly after 5-6 seasons. And it's amazing what he did there. I'll always say that.
Because he's playing.
Yeah. And there's even something that comes up probably in the next 2 episodes, I'm pretty sure, that's kind of hinted at in that conversation about it being a hellmouth, and we all realise suddenly that everybody knows, and they're trying to cover it up. He says, "Oh, well, maybe you should go speak to the mayor," and he goes, "No, I'll sort it."
Yes,
No
because again, the
spoilers, but
mayor.
we'll that's
We'll
coming.
get there, but yeah. So it's how high does this go up? Because
Yeah,
obviously
how
all the
far does
officials
this
are
go?
aware, and you figure Buffy would
Definitely.
have an easier time of it since everyone knows, but no, they just don't care.
No,
So the Kiss came out in 1988. I'm gonna
right,
send you the link for it and see if there's. I think it's on Amazon, but you might have to rent it. I'll
right,
put
okay.
it in. But anyway,
I'll
it
have
was just one of my favorite movies with her. I just remember. So if it was 88, I was like 15 years old, and it was, the perfect teenage angst movie where the girl's mother dies and the stepmother she thinks is some sort of blood-sucking creep. But anyway, I recommend it highly, and
yeah,
I
definitely. I'll
love
have a look.
her.
We have one more song this week. Sorry.
No, don't be
It
sorry.
was at the beginning as we opened, and it was Charged by Splendid.
I don't even remember that. I'm gonna have to listen to it
Yeah,
after. I don't
I
remember.
must admit, I kind of remember vaguely something at the beginning. Um, uh, it was it a Bronze scene, I think.
It's funny because whenever I hear music and I'm starting to become more aware, like, oh, Claire will talk about that later.
Yeah,
So I get very excited about that.
yeah. I must admit,
Um,
I like those bits because at the time, I kind of knew some of the main songs for some of my famous, the famous episodes are the ones that we you watch a lot that you really, really love. But I've learnt so much as far as we've gone of little bits of music that you just pass over because you're into the storyline, and they're absolutely
exactly.
great. I'm enjoying it. I must be honest. I think that was it. What all I had for this week, apart from was it the director? Who was there was somebody else that was quite had done a lot of stuff. Give me a second, and
Take
it
your
was
time.
interesting. Um,
Well, Joss wrote
director
this one.
James Whitmore. Um, his other credits included the guy who directed this episode: Melrose Place, Quantum Leap, The X Files, Nowhere Man, The Pretender, and he was also an actor playing Bernie Terwilliger in Hunter.
Oh.
Now
And
I
I
don't
know
know what Hunter is. It
Joss,
doesn't.
it's a TV show.
Right, I guess it's an American
It's an
TV show.
American TV
Yeah,
show.
I don't ever see it. Don't remember
But
hearing of it or seeing it in
Joss
this country.
Joss and Marty Noxon wrote this episode, and they're two of my favorite writers from the show. So
Yeah,
we know it's going to be a goodie.
yeah, Martin Ox definitely. Yeah, it was great. I enjoyed it.
Same. All right. Well, I guess then let's move on to our second episode of the week. Is season 2, episode 20, "Go Fish,"
Mm.
which is again just a fun, ridiculous episode. Starts
Sorry,
out
Tony put it was 1988 for that movie. Sorry, I didn't see your comment come up. I apologise.
1988.
Thanks for
Yes,
self.
yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Um, Starts out, beach at night, teens partying. Xander's cranky because they're celebrating the swim team victory with a beach party, and he's cold. His nips are saying it's nippy, and he is
Yeah.
done, and he does not want to be here anymore. Um, Buffy's sitting alone, forlorn, watching the water, and Cameron Walker, the head of the swim team, and total douchebag. You know that even from the beginning. Just
Total
like starts
douchebag.
hitting on Buffy, and she's playing it off as good as she can, and no pressure. Just wants to be around her.
Oh, it makes me want to vomit. It's horrible.
I know. And then at the same time, the swim team is hazing Jonathan by ducking his head in an ice bucket. So obviously she steps in and pushes the jock to the ground, which then demeans Jonathan, and he storms off embarrassed. But, nice to see Jonathan again. He just pops in
Always
every
nice to
time
see
you need an
Jonathan.
extra student. So the jock's name is Dodd, and he wanders off near the ocean. And it's like there's like he smelled something weird, and then you hear these tearing sounds, and then you just see skin on the beach, and a
Like a
creature, some
skin
sea
suit.
monster, like goes running through the sewer drain, and yeah, that's weird. And then so Willow is still teaching Miss Calendar's class. Um, there's a student, Gage Wentworth Miller, which we know from many TV shows
Yes.
and movies. Won't do his homework, ends being difficult. And, Willow gives him shit. She's like, I need you to do this. And she was really good because I know she was nervous that somebody wasn't going to respect her authority, but
Yeah.
she pulled her rank. And then Mr. Snyder tells her she has to pass him anyway. Like, do what you
Yeah.
got to
It's
do, but
hateful,
pass
isn't
him.
it?
I hate that. It makes me crazy, that whole,
Me
got to
too.
pass the jocks because we got to win the big game.
Me
But
too.
he needs to win the championship. So Snyder flat out tells her to alter his grade. Um, we cut to Buffy's in the car with Cameron, and she just looks so bored because he's one of these people that just loves to talk about himself and look at himself and,
Oh, it's
all
just,
that other stuff. And he's getting like creepy when he's hitting on her, like asking her
oh,
if she's
it's
wearing a
such
bra and like, all
a
that high school
triggering
bullshit.
episode for me.
Really.
That whole scene in that car and the one after
It's
it.
right. It's disgusting. So he tries something with her. She grabs him and like slams his head into the steering
Oh, it's
wheel. His
beautiful. Breaks his nose. It's
breaks his
beautiful.
nose. His face is all bloody.
Poetic,
And
even.
Snyder's standing there, catches her, and he tells him that Buffy led him on, and look at the way she's dressed.
Oh,
And like you said,
honestly,
this episode makes me
it gave me the
cringe.
biggest ick I've ever had
It's so
in
bad.
my life.
The coach comes to check on him in the nurse's office, and oh, we need him at 110% after what happened at Dodd. And Buffy's like, what happened at Dodd? And they're like, mind your own business. And that maybe she should dress a little more appropriately from now
Appropriately,
on.
it's just
And just
hateful.
as an aside, I will never forget when I was in high school and I got Lyme disease. And one of the
Oh my
students,
god,
which was
bless
a
you.
friend of mine, was in a classroom and they didn't know he was there. And my English teacher told another teacher that I got Lyme disease from rolling around in the hay too much.
Oh,
But
that's disgusting.
yeah, and not great. So it just, yeah, this stuff just gets me a little but yeah, so
Yeah,
Buffy
me
needs
too.
to
It
dress
triggered
more
me. I'll be
appropriately.
honest, this triggered me. Those scenes, the
Yeah.
car in the doctor's office, especially, just triggered me so bad. I
Yeah.
actually, Rich was sick in bed, and if he'd been awake, his ears would not have stopped ringing for like 2 hours because I would have just had a whole rant about it.
Yeah, and Buffy
Well, I feel
is,
that's why Josh did it personally.
oh yeah. I mean, there's a very specific point here with,
How not to
as we
be a douche
discussed.
and how not to judge.
Yes, exactly. So Buffy's in the library ranting about this when she finds out that they found Dodd's remains, or at least his skin. What could eat someone and just leave the skin? So meanwhile, Cameron's in the steam room trying to open up his sinuses per the coach. And when he leaves, he bumps into Xander in the hallway, and he makes fun of the fact that Buffy broke his nose.
Yeah,
And
great.
Cameron goes to the cafeteria to get food, and then again, like Xander's like, cafeteria's closed. He's like, not for me, because I'm jock dude. And then same thing, you see him smelling something weird, and
I'm guessing it's a fishy smell.
it would probably be some sort of fishy smell. And Xander hears a loud crash and goes running in, and like all the tables are knocked over in the cafeteria, and he finds Cameron's skin. So he then turns around and comes face to face with the monster, the gill man, the creature from the chlorinated lagoon. Um, so they determined that since Cameron and Dodd were the top two swimmers on the team, and if their theory is correct, the next swimmer that's in danger is going to be Gage because he's number 3, and obviously he's Wentworth Miller, so we need to see more of him.
Well,
So they
obviously.
decide they're going to keep an eye on him, which makes me laugh because Buffy stealthily stalking him is so like,
So unstealthily.
like what, like garbage cans moving, and it's so funny.
It's
But
so bad.
so they're trying to figure out who hates the swim team enough to kill them, and they think it's got to be Jonathan because they're always picking on him.
Yeah.
So when Gage notices Buffy, at the same time Willow's questioning Jonathan, like doing bad cop on him. It's adorable. So she
I
thinks she
actually
can
love it
trick
when
him.
Willow interrogates people. I find
I
it
love
adorable.
it. She thinks she's going to trick him into telling him that he kills him, and what he admits to is that he peed in the
Peed in the
pool.
pool. Yeah, so
It
funny.
is so gross. So Xander overhears Snyder and the coach talking that they need someone for the team or they're going to be disqualified. So, I mean, like all they have to do is wear a bathing suit. So, Puffy again's watching at the bronze watching game. She's so trying to be nonchalant, but he's just like, seriously? And she's like, well, I'm a swim groupie. And he's like, yeah, not buying that shit. So she's like, she tells him that she thinks he's going to be the next one to be killed. He gets mad and he's like, pushes out of there. And he's like, it bumps into Angel. He's talking about that bitch. And Angel's like, you must be talking about Buffy.
Yeah.
Which I think, so he then like attacks Gage and goes to bite him. And Angel comes out. I mean, Buffy comes out, sees this, runs to help, and Angel like starts spitting out his blood. Something's wrong with Gage's blood, and Angel does not like
I
it.
guess it tastes funky.
It tasted funky, so Angel runs off, and Gage then asks Buffy to walk him home, which I think is adorable. Um, Buffy thinks it's steroids, that must be what's in the blood. That's why Angel didn't like it. And her and Cordelia, they're at the pool and they're talking, and she sees this dude walk out in his Speedo, and Cordelia's all like, oh yeah, and then she realizes it's Xander, and they're all like, oh my god. And then he
You
tried
see,
out for the
Xander in the
team.
red speedos is so good and so right. Especially, I mean, it shouldn't be because he's a 17-year-old boy, but he's not, as we know. What, he's like 34 at this point, I think, or something.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was in his early 30s when he took the role. So,
He's
I mean,
going
we're a few
undercover on the
seasons
swim
in,
team, but
two
yeah, you
seasons in.
feel a little dirty, don't you? Just going, oh,
Yeah, but
we're
then
looking
I
pretty good.
suppose in real life, you'd be allowed because, he's 30 odd years old. He's a grown man.
Yeah, it's all right, I suppose. So
Yeah.
Cordelia's just excited that she's dating a swimmer from the Sunnydale High swim team. So they're back in the steam room, and Xander's like, well, I love that he's trying to like question the guys and like, hey, so where are you getting your roids from? So
So
Xander
awkward,
leaves.
but so funny.
So awkward. Gage is still inside, and Buffy's outside waiting for him. And same thing, you see Gage smells something bad, and then he screams. And the monsters in the locker room, Gage starts screaming and then comes apart, and then all of a sudden there's two monsters in there, and she fights off the two monsters, and they do this fun slide thing down into the drain. Like, I like when they do, it's like a slip and slide. I don't know if you guys
Yeah.
had those in England, but they were
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Coach shows up and takes her to the nurse. So they realize the boys have been drugged, and the nurse probably had something to do with it.
Hmm.
Buffy tells Xander to find out, how they're getting the drugs. And so then he's like, again, he's questioning them in the steam room. So awkward because he's just not chill at all. And they're like, you're soaking in it. That was an old Palmolive commercial, but it's
Yeah.
in the steam. So then he starts kind of freaking out, like, I'm going to be a fish boy. We find out that the coach is all behind this and that the nurse is in on it, but she is trying to
He was
get
an
him to stop.
accomplice.
And I love her too. What's her name? Conchetta. I gotta look it up. Conchetta Ferreira. She actually
Yeah.
just passed away
Francesca
a
Ferrier.
couple years ago, but I loved her. She was
Yeah,
amazing.
she was great. She's been in a lot.
A lot of stuff. So she basically tells him, like, you need to tell him or tell her what's going on in the steam, and oh, hang on, I'm sorry. So yeah, the nurse is in on it. She tries to get him to stop. He chucks her in a hole into the water with the babies because the boys need to eat. So
Yeah.
now she's in, waist high water with three fish guys. Xander's freaking out because he bathed in the steam three times a fish guy. He's thinking
Three
he's going
times
to
a
pop
fish
out
guy.
three times a fish guy. So he goes to question the coach, or Buffy goes to question the coach.
Yeah,
And,
Buffy goes and Xander walks in on it, I think.
yeah, and then he tells her after the fall of the Soviet Union, they found all these documents with these experiments with like shark and tarpon and etc. And
Yeah.
then he pulls a gun on her. He tells her to get in the hole. Um, Puts her in the tank with the boys and the dead nurse, which she finds quickly. And she's like, "What are you going to feed me to them?" And he's like, "Oh no, they already ate, but my boy's got other needs," which
And
again
it's
is just
just
is
again in the same
such a
vein of
rapey
makes you,
episode.
oh, it's, yeah, we need a shower after this episode,
Yeah,
even though it's
it's
Buffy.
rapey.
Yeah.
This is cute. Cordelia and Xander at the pool. They're talking at
Oh,
the
God,
pool.
yeah, it's
And he
adorable.
walks away to get something, and she's got her back to the pool. And then all of a sudden, somebody dives in the pool, and it's a creature. And she's
I'll
like,
stick by you. I don't care
"Oh
if you're a
yes,
fish,
we'll
but
have little bath
it's so
toys, and then I
adorable.
don't care if you're a fish." And then Xander comes out. He's like, "That's not me," and they both run. So Giles locks the remaining swim team in the cage in the library. Nobody questions why there's a cage in the library, and I love that. That's what's so
Well,
great about
well,
the show.
well, well, well. As someone who is an ex-librarian, if we remember, um, it is quite often to have a cage for rare books.
But in a school library, I should specify.
If they've got rare text in that school library, it will belong to that library. And if it's something that's valuable, they would have a book cage for locking those things in. Also for things that are, say, delicate that you wouldn't want people touching.
Yeah. I'm thinking
We had
100%
a
I
cage
agree.
in the school library I worked in. The first one when I left school, it was a school library, and we had a cage.
Really?
So for rare
You ever
books.
lock
So
any
I'm
books
just
in there?
saying.
Because I think that'd be amazing. So anyway, Giles locks the students in a cage in the library. Buffy's in the water, and the creatures are. It's actually a really cool scene because they're just like circling her in there, and Xander comes in, confronts the coach. You know, where's Buffy? And Xander knocks out the coach. I give him big credit.
Yeah, he does
Buffy's
knock him clean off.
surrounded. Xander reaches down, grab my hand. She jumps up. He grabs her. You know, they're grabbing at her feet, but he gets her out and pulls her to safety. It's a very cool scene. And then the coach knocks Xander out, and but then he falls into the hole, which I think is really kind of funny. So
Yeah.
he gets devoured pretty quickly because, you know, I guess they worked up an appetite fighting Buffy. Um, so then Giles tells them that the creatures have escaped, and then we see them all swimming in the ocean, and I think Buffy or Willow says they're going home. So I don't
Yeah.
think we'll see them anymore. And it's kind of sweet and kind of sad because
Yeah. Yeah, it
maybe
is.
they're happy as fish boys. But it is
Maybe swimming free and all that.
yeah, I mean, it's not bad. But yeah, this episode is
It's one of the better Monster of the Weeks as well. I find this one. It's a really good Monster of the
because
Week, and
it
I say it's
makes you
quite,
uncomfortable.
yes, it's an uncomfortable episode, very uncomfortable,
Yeah.
and I think that's what
We
makes it.
completely unrelated, but we were watching a movie last night which I always enjoyed called The Burning. It's from like
Yeah, I've
very
seen The
early
Burning.
80s. So we watched it again because Adam and Ryan are not fans. And as I'm watching this,
I like The Burning.
well, I always liked it, and I don't know if it's a nostalgia thing, but to go back and watch it now, it is an extremely rapey movie.
Mm,
All the
it is
guys, like
indeed.
usually in those slasher films, the girls are just as into it as the guys. In this, it's constant pressure and practically. And
Yeah,
then I
it's
come to
very much
realize
like
as
that.
I'm looking it up, it was written by Harvey Weinstein.
Oh, what a shock!
And now all of a
I didn't
sudden,
know that either.
I didn't know that. And now this movie that I actually always loved, I
Yeah, it's tainted.
don't because
Ugh,
it
yeah,
changed it
tainted.
for me. Yeah. So this episode I still love,
Yeah, I
but
love
yeah,
this
that's
episode.
amazing how that stuff just affects you so much. But what do you
Same.
got for
You
me
know
on
what I'm
this
like.
one?
I'm the same as you with things that affect me like that. It's like if I even think a movie's going to affect me that way or something, I won't watch it to start with.
Yeah.
It lingers. And again, I love Buffy and I love this episode, but it did linger for a little while, even though it's one of my favourite episodes.
Right.
It makes you feel very uncomfortable a lot of the times through this. A couple of songs with it this week. We've got Man's Chinese by Naked, And that was
Nope.
at the party on the beach. And then If You'd Listen by Nero's Room.
Nice.
Yeah, nice little tracks in there.
I
You
feel like,
mentioned, sorry,
oh no, I feel like coming soon we're going to get a lot more music in them because they do
we
a lot
do,
more
and we get a lot
bands.
more people that people know as well. Bigger,
Yeah.
no mainstream bands that people have heard of, definitely. You mentioned, what was her name? Conchetta?
Conchetta Ferreira.
Yeah. She
I love
was
her.
also Susan Bloom in LA Law. She was in True Romance, Edward Scissorhands, and Network, and a billion other things. But they were the things I
Yeah.
picked.
First thing I ever knew her from, and this is showing my age. So before the drama ER, did you guys have ER in
Mm.
England?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, loved it. Watched it all.
Before that show, there was a sitcom in the early 80s called ER. And
Oh,
it
no, I don't remember
actually
that.
had George Clooney, and it was a comedy.
Oh, I don't
And
remember that. We
yeah,
probably didn't
no,
get
you
that.
probably wouldn't have. I watched it with my father, and I don't know if it ever went anywhere. And it was,
No.
I should look it up, but I'll send
Yeah.
it to you later. But she was
Yeah,
on
please.
that show, and that was the first thing I ever saw her from. And then Two and a Half Men, I feel like she really owned that show. It was great. I don't know if you ever saw that there, but
Of course, 2.5 men. Of course, that I would. Yes. Do you
yes.
know,
So
it had gone out of my head who she was for a second.
she's just one of
Yeah, of
those
course, she was
people that's
great
in
in that.
everything, you
Bertha.
know?
She was Bertha in 2.5 Men. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, she
Love
was
her.
amazing in that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally went out my head. Oh, she was
So,
also in Mr. Deeds, as Rich has just reminded me.
who is she?
She was in Mr. Deeds. She
Oh,
was,
yes. Oh, yeah.
she's,
If you look at her
who ran
IMDb,
the,
man, she's
works in the
got a
pizza shop.
list. But I was sad she died in 2020, and that one hurt a little bit because she's just
Yeah,
always
sad one.
been a part of my life in one weird way or another. But yeah. So anything else you have for this here
Yeah,
episode?
the title of it, Go Fish, actually comes from Rose Tiroche's 1994 lesbian movie, which I've never heard of, but apparently that's the same title and that's where it came from.
Really? I
Yeah.
just figured it was from the old game. There was a
Yeah, me too.
see the
But
things we
that was
learned
it.
doing this show. It's not just about fun, it's about education.
This is a learning curve. Every day's a school day on One Swallow with Abby and Claire. But yeah, that's about what I had this week. You know, and I'd say it's a very, very uncomfortable episode. You know, but a great one and a great monster of the week, I feel.
Yeah, definitely. So, all right. Well, then we just want to end this with thanking my dear co host and her lovely husband, Rich, who's behind the camera and helps us out
Yes,
with
our great
everything.
technicals.
Perfect Turd Podcast. We love you.
We love you guys. You're the best. Even though, have you seen Joe's video about how he uses the toilet?
No.
I suggest you go and check out Perfect Turds podcast
Going to
about
have to do
how
that.
Joe uses the toilet.
There's things
That's a
I
tip
didn't
for
know
you
I
all
needed
there.
to
It's there
know.
on their YouTube. It's also on their Instagram and everything, and on their Facebook.
I'm scared, but I'm going to have to look
It's
now.
fun. It's fun. You'll love it. It's interesting.
And we love our guys at Amityville Horror. And,
Habitsville Horror, our boys. We love
like
them.
it.
We love our family.
Stay right there, Claire. When you do that, I mean, seriously, you got the boobs with the. You had it lined up perfect. You even had cleavage going. It was great. But sorry about that. Yeah. So thank you,
It's okay.
everybody. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Tony, thank you for watching.
Yeah, thank you.
So Tony and I went to high school together.
All right.
Middle school
Excellent.
and high school together.
Excellent.
And then Clint, I saw your little face, and everybody else that watches, thank you.
Oh,
We
I
love
have
you.
one quick more thing I was going to mention.
Yes,
have you seen about the new table read for? It's going to be Spikeverse. It's going to be some of the original cast. It's coming up next month, and it'll be available on audio. Now, in this verse, Buffy doesn't exist, but it's a new adaptation story read. I shall post a link in comments when we do the show. And I've also shared a couple of places on my page today. If anybody who's on my page, or I think I shared it to Hammersville and to Scream Until You Like It and Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan group. So it is there. But yeah, that's exciting.
That is
my friend Steph actually messaged me this morning and said she's actually going to pre-order it. It comes out on Audible.
Excellent. I have a credit on Audible just waiting for me to use, and I've been trying to decide what my next book is going to be. So Ta-da!
Yeah, Tony says, yes, we did. I guess that's about going to high school together. That's amazing.
Yes.
Awesome. Right then.
All right, my loves. Well, thank you, everybody. It was great seeing you. Please feel free to come back, like, subscribe, hit the little bell, whatever makes you happy. If you ever want to come on the show and do an episode with us, just
Yep,
let
hit
us
us up.
know.
Let us know. We are on 21 and 20. 20 and 21, aren't we? Sorry, 21 and
21 and
22.
22 next week.
Which is the double over series end, I think, isn't it?
Oh, so that would be, let's see. So the next week
Beginning
would be,
part 1
yes,
and 2.
becoming part 1 and 2.
That's it,
Oh,
sorry.
we did plan
Becoming
that
part
very
1 and 2.
well then, didn't we? That's
Yeah,
excellent.
we did it right. I was actually looked a few weeks ago because we are trying to get it out where we were in order, and obviously sometimes we have an extra episode in there when there's a two-parter. So
Right,
bear
because you
with
don't
us.
want to split up a
We're on
two-parter.
track for now, and that's thanks to Abby.
That's great. All right, then we'll see you guys next week, which is, I don't know what the date is next week, but
it's next
it's
Thursday.
next
We're an hour
Thursday.
earlier next week, aren't we?
That's the 28th. I think that's 2 weeks. So then maybe next week is the
All right.
21st. So,
All right.
but either way, we'll see you next week, and we love you guys.
We love you guys.
Bye.
Bye, 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 bye.
Bye, bye, bye.